little coat of acrylic on it, so you can see, you can still have trace of the places, but I wanted it to be not so important. In my work, oh God, I like to, what can I say, the accidental things that just come to me. So in the lobby of my house, I found this book of Grey's Anatomy, and I just thought it was very interesting that suddenly, working with the map and the blood circulation, I had this book in my hand, and then I began to make a new series, which is called Rooted. I just show you two examples. They relate again to me in a certain way. So here is the map of Manhattan, where I cut everything except the main streets and half a skull that was in the book. When I collage these maps, you can see that the borders relates to map. I find it very interesting because it always sets it in a kind of space, even if it's a psychological space. You have the north, the west, the east, and south. So it's the idea that we are always in a certain space, whatever, you know. And here I use the titles that I can find in these maps, or this one was taken from an atlas, actually. So États-Unis, New York. And here, this one is a map of Switzerland that I cut again the road to make this head, and Grey's Anatomy. And here this one is called Pays Alpin. So here we have two-dimensional work, and then I began to work also in 3-dimension. So, oh God. Sorry, I want to show you the first piece I made here. Sorry. So this piece is home. And working with map, of course, I was always thinking of home, mostly living in different countries. How do you define home? What is home? How home can change? So home is always in my thought and in relation to immigration. So it's a doormat. Thinking about the doormat was interesting because you have the inside and the outside, the homes that we are living in, but also this new home where we have to adapt and find new connection. So this piece actually is made from a lot of different maps. I cut them in little strips. The lines of color you can see show the different color of the seas that were on the maps. The corner are a name of cities that I cut from an atlas, and the centers are from different countries. I just cut. So this piece has about 43,000 whole. How I made it is, so I took a tapestry canvas with these little holes that you can see, and I pulled down every single strip of paper. So not to say it took me ages. And in the same idea of this representation of the world with the map, I made this piece here. playing with the idea of, sorry, I just show you a better example here. The flat object. Sorry, so the flat object that represents Earth, and although at the moment, at that time, there were a lot of discussion about people in America who were thinking that the world was flat. So I had representation of the world flat, the globe, and also our own representation connecting to our childhood. So I crumbled a piece of paper, made it a circle, and this one is called "The World is Not Flat." Interesting in the idea of representation, also thinking of how we perceive the surrounding. Here is, I show you another piece in my studio. Sorry, why it's not working, sorry. Sorry, something is not working. Anyway. Oh, here. So same idea about the flatness of the map and the spheric reality of the globe and Earth. So here I took a full map of the world. I cut it in little strips and then did this two-piece connecting. Here is the sea, on the edge is the Earth. And also in my work, knitting, crochet, and sewing comes a lot. I like the idea with a thread that you can build, of course, clothes, but symbolically for me, it's to build a world. So with this thread, actually, I crocheted the spheric part of it. And then I made this vessel, again, thinking of the the weaving of a community, the interaction between people. That's the maps I cut, and the symbolism of the vessel with all what it contains. As we always, on our move and experiences, we always build up, and our way of thinking contains all our new experiences. This one comes from France, and so it's a different color, a lot of forest, as you can see. So now about books. As I was telling you before, sorry, and the accidental, in the same lobby of my place, in my house, I found these Horizont magazines that were produced around 1950, 60 to, I think, 89. Again, the idea of Horizont when you are in literature, connecting Horizont with traveling and new country, new places to experience or see. So I was interested in all these second meaning of the word, mostly the new horizon that is calling you when you are moving. So here it's the front of the book where I cut the sea to represent the sky, And on the bottom is some pages cut from a place. And the back, here is the back of the book, where again I made the horizon. I call it dancing horizon, thinking of each and every one representation of the horizon. So I show you here details because I have 3 on my wall. So this one, yes, this one is falling horizon. Again, the way I kind of cut and then with the paper. So here, also building differently the structure, always thinking of other way to think about the horizon. And this one too, with almost hidden horizon. At the Center for Book Art, I have a piece that that is part of this same series here, where it's Switzerland, and the bottom part is cut, also with a stitch here. Thinking of, I call it the layered horizon. It's where my family came from, Italy, and thinking about all the layers I hold within this migrating event. So, these are examples of installation I just made, which are how people are moving from one place to the other. This one is called By Sea. The map is cut. You don't have references, just here, some seas, and thinking of people who have to move or move by choice, but never easy. This one is by land, and here is a detail. Now I will show you 2 artist book in connection with my map making. So here is a like a box, and you open it, and here is my book. It's a contemporary take of the book. It's made from an atlas that I cut again to have a thread, and thinking of this thread that we are using to construct our own world and the world that is around us. So I deconstructed the atlas to, in a way, make it my own, but also the ones that you want to do. So it's not essentially personal. It comes from a personal experience, but then it's to everybody to think how we connect with others and how we experience the world around us. So I am showing you all this work with maps, because that was also the inspiration for what I made at the Center for Book Arts construction site. So construction site is connecting with the idea of my grandfather, who as a teenager left Italy by foot to find work. He find work mostly in construction site, and years later settled in Switzerland and had the business of construction. I really thought the idea of construction was interesting with the concept of constructing a new life. So it's how I thought of this new project. And I began to think about books because although the book has a story, I had my story, it's an object you can hold in your hands, you can open it and discover what is inside. So here I have my little bricks representing the building of the house, and each brick has different words, but all the words relate to construction or also immigration, like the new land, but also the land you have to have your house. And then the plumb line to build a straight wall, but this one is with maps. So the point where you want to settle, the point where you feel you are at ease to live. So, and also this little, sorry, this plumb line is made in a, like a book, artist book, with the stitches in the middle to hold it. So on my share screen, you can see how these pieces are exhibited as an installation.
Hey, Viviane?
Yes?
We had to stop the share screen because some people were having trouble seeing what was on your iPhone. So can we choose, can you show us through the slideshow first and then move to the iPhone for the rest of the evening? Is that possible? Or do you have to alternate?
We use quite a lot the iPhone for the other section, actually, because it's more artist books. So so okay. Now we keep with the share screen. Then, is that okay?
Yeah, you can reshare the screen. I think people are just asking.
Oh, okay, let me see. Sorry. So everybody sees the screen now? Should be. Yes?
Yes, I see it. Okay.
So that's how the installation is the form. It can move at the, that's a picture I didn't take at the Center for Book Art, but it has a little the same representation. I have some other work at the Center of Book Art, which I invite you to go. I hope I open your curiosity to go and see the other installation connecting to this idea of construction and migration. So now we are moving to another space in my studio where I am showing you work with phone books. Sorry, just moving the computer. Okay, here. I began to work with phone books. Do you see my screen? Yes?
No, we don't.
Oh, why? I have to share again?
Oh, yeah, please share again.
So I began to work with phone books when I was invited to do a project about living in different places. I didn't know exactly what I was going to use, but thinking of the connection with people, suddenly the phone book came to my mind. At the time, to connect with people, we had phone books. We had to go through it to contact the doctor, the school, and on a everyday basis. I thought it was a very interesting object, just because in all the places I lived, it had the same format, white and yellow pages, and also thinking how these phone books, having this same format, were holding so many different symbolically people with different culture. So I decided to work with them. I took a phone book from each country I have been living, and then I chose some patterns that kind of were important to me. The first one you see here is with Swiss phone books, where I used the idea of lace making that has been very important in Switzerland for centuries and still on, where lace making is done for the fashion industry. And then here is an example of a piece I made with Italian phone books, where I cut Italian phone books and put them in a mosaic format. Of course, thinking about all the churches and the cultural background of this mosaic. For when I was living in Singapore, I chose to work with the circle, with the idea of the Enzo circle, the yin, the yang, and also thinking of the Indian community and the Bindi dot. So going to the American phone books, I work with the idea of the quilt making. And mostly also quilt making is very interesting, how often it involved the community, woman community. The first one I made, they are collages actually, were more traditional, like the log cabin design. And then I just went to some of my other more larger pieces. Here is the one you see on the background of my studio. So just to show you the size of the piece, it's very large. And if I manage, I want to show you some details. So can we see the details? Yes. So I like to keep traces of the phone books. This one is from Manhattan. And I put some washes of ink and gouache sometimes to define a certain color. I don't change it very much. So I then thought about communication and language with the phone books. Sorry, now I have to take my tripod because I am going to show you some artist book. So within the in different language, this phone book where I was living, we had different languages, and but what was the characterized these languages is that they all had the shared alphabet, the Roman alphabet. So I wanted to work with the idea of this shared alphabet, but also the difficulty of speaking other languages, and sometimes in the understanding of people with the accent, mostly how difficult it is sometimes. So the first piece I made was my alphabet, where I took one page for each letter of the alphabet. And do you see the screen? Sorry to ask, but with the alphabet. And then here, where I cut everything, also thinking of this shifting situation where the phone book, it's almost going to disappear, and but still having this letters that I could share in all the different languages. So from there, I did this concertina book that you can see here. Yes. It's called Along the Lines. And so each page is one letter of the alphabet. And this time I just circled the chosen letter and I connected each similar letter with a line. So from this line, I draw, sorry, my book. So from this line, I made this drawing. The vertical line became horizontal. Here you have all the alphabet and letters that are more used. You see more lines. So thinking about language and the way we communicate and the accent often in relation to music, because when you don't understand the language, you only hear the musicality. I thought about making a piece that would just be like a new language within this idea of music and communicating. With the collaboration of a musician, Benjamin Velez, it translated my drawings into musical scores, and people and viewers were able to play the music. So here I have a little example for you, where I put the letter C, like center for book art. It has a kind of randomness, but also it opened all a way to think about how we communicate and how we listen to people, and what it means when you don't understand very well some person. So in the same idea, I made this artist book, which is called, wait a second, I'll show you. No, sorry. In transition, here, where thinking about people who speak different languages, but it's very hard to erase what was your mother language. So I took a different phone book from different country and used the same letter, but the phone book had different font. So you always have the trace of the letter. So this trace is like the shadowy remains of your mother tongue in a way. And with phone books, I also make other little books where I write when I was taking away all the text doing my alphabet theory. I found a lot of words that were words of streets that were interesting. So I began to do these little poetic books. Unfortunately, it's in French. So, but it's little sentences. I will read you one. La couleur rouge danse à bord du sexe des femmes. So, another work that is inspired by the phone books and the interaction in the sense of communication. The last piece is Interwoven. This piece is based on the fabric of the society and how we communicate. So it's based on the fabric, the pattern in fabrics. And there I cut actually name of people. And I don't know if you can see. So it's all name taken from the phone book. And it's like people are interacting to build a society and to communicate within them. So here are the section with phone books. It's ending, and I will go to the environment space. Sorry, I just need to organize myself. It's different corner in my studio. So here. Sorry, I just try to make you see the best part of it. Voila. Okay. So I have always been interested in the environment and nature. Growing in the Alps, it was just the mountains, and this environment was incredible. So when I arrived in New York, I was appalled by all the use of plastic. And at the same time, I didn't know what to do. I just kept them. I couldn't throw them away. And slowly, I began to have all this plastic. I was able to do my first installation with plastic at Wave Hill, where the use of plastic in this space, like a stained glass, could define two spaces, one outside, which was connecting to nature and the environment, and inside the way we consume and use plastic and pollute. So the imagery is based on the palisades that you see from Wave Hill. I show you here my palette with all these plastic bags that I cut, and the transparency of the plastics that really could build this connection from the outside inside. It's also interesting to know that plastic comes from a natural element, petroleum. So I did other installations. This one was at Smart Melon. And here you see words coming in the work, reuse or recycle. And another one at Mixed Screen Galleries, even more words showing the places, Chinatown, name of streets, so relating directly to the city where I was. So these plastic bags were for me a way to question the way we interact with nature and what we live as a rejection and pollution, mostly at sea. So that's another installation where I noted the plastic bags on a fishing net. It's called Plasticon. Really thinking of almost a new sea animals, something that we can't get rid of it. And working with plastic bag, I made this artist book. Let me see now what is it here. Sorry, just trying to. Okay. So here, see the sea. And what do you see? You don't see my my video. Why? Do you see the video? No?
Yeah, we see it.
You see? Okay. So it's called See the Sea, and it's a kind of an ode to the sea. With the plastic that I collect, and now also in a lot of food packaging, unfortunately, I cut all the letters I could find. And then it's the way I wrote my text. It's a concertina book. And so See the Sea, Cry, for example, with the sea that is plastic bags. And it goes on with the little ode to the sea until at the end, it's the place is getting darker. So here, an example. So that's work I am making with plastic. And now I am showing you some artist book that I'm so able to still hear me because my earphone is, yeah, okay.
Yes, we still hear you.
So here it's a piece, it's called Tree Talk. I made this piece when I was hiking in Switzerland. I came upon these trees that were cut. I know that human cut trees for generation, for cultural reason, not to protect forest even sometimes. But at the same time, I was thinking about all the burning and the cutting, unnecessary cutting of trees. And I felt like it was a call from the tree to do something with them. So I thought about the 5 senses and I work with it. So the words breathe, smell, touch, look were printed on the page.
Viviane,
And
can you tilt the phone downward so we can see the full book? Yes. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. So that's the real trunk. I did that directly in the forest. If you want to see the process, it's in my website. And I printed also in situs. So a way for me to really think about each and everyone, how we can think about the world around us and physically also live in this world and take care of it. Here is a piece of wood that also was taken from the same forest. And because it's very large, I thought about just making it in a small box like that. I have another piece where I used natural element, which this piece was made in Wyoming. It's called Grassland. I was walking in the surrounding, and what I do a lot when I walk, I take little bits and pieces, sometimes just as inspiration, but also something to touch, something physical that makes me alive. So here, I was taking these cattail stems and I began to cut them, and inside they had this beautiful texture, and in relation to the landscape that is really open and dry and expanded, I made these minimal collages. So that's another example how I work with natural elements in my work. When I do work, I don't have any rules. Often it's the thinking process and how suddenly things merge. But definitely, I always like to leave some space for this material when I use them directly on the piece. Of course, sometimes the material just help me to dig into another way of working. So that's not the only way I could do things. So here, for example, on the wall, oh, wait, oops, don't know what you see, but so that's, for example, some drawing from plants, and here some prints from lichens. So I work very differently, depends what I want to express or do. So here is the tour of my studio. I hope you enjoyed it. And sorry for what you were seeing or not, but I hope you could still grab what is my artistic vision and a way of working. So if you have any question, Gina? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. There's no questions in the chat yet, but
okay, perhaps people don't know they can ask question on the chat.
Okay, would we be able to stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Some people
I close the I close it, or I just put it. Okay.
Still... Okay. I can also stop sharing your screen. Okay.
Oh, I stopped this one. Sorry. Wait. Okay. All done. Yeah.
So if people have questions, I can also allow participants to unmute themselves if they want to speak up, but we encourage people to use the chat. Someone asked this question. She messaged it to me privately by accident, I think, but do you find nature in the US as inspiring as in Switzerland?
Actually, when I was in Wyoming, yes, it has its own language. So I am open to anything that I can see and feel. It could be the same. Yes, it's different. It's other places. But for me, my eyes, my heart takes everything. Yes. So there is no differences.
Does anyone else have questions? Maybe people are writing them, so we want to give them a couple seconds.
Hi, Viviane. Salut.
Oh, hello, Mickey.
I'm outside, so
I just
wanted...
how nice.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
having
you
a
for
beer
joining
in my backyard. Yeah, and
yeah.
I got here late, but you know, I'm a big fan of your work. I've known your work for many years, and I always appreciate it and feel like we have similar concerns in some ways. You know, like the international stuff and your work with maps. I don't know if you showed any of that tonight, or if you were just showing the stuff.
Yes, no, I showed the map at the beginning because it's also the beginning of my story with speaking about migration and thinking about living in different places within the use of map. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope people have questions because I'd like to hear the answers.
Yeah, we just got a few questions. So the next question is from Dominique. Was there a place in your travels where you felt the most productive artistically, and why?
Not really. I began to make art later in life, and it was in Australia. And since then, I always think I don't have enough time to make art. Everything inspires me. Sometimes I feel hard not to be losing myself into many thoughts. So that would be more my concern. But no, everything is very inspiring for me. Yeah.
Someone asks, what are your next inspirations and what are your next series?
So I have to add too that, yes, I work in series, but within this series, sometimes it can go for years. As you saw, the maps has about 10 different series, but it's still going on. The phone books, not really at the moment. And because I spend a lot of time in Switzerland lately, nature became really important in my work. I am making very large drawing of my close environment in Switzerland. I don't know yet what's going to be at the end, but it's really a work in process at the moment, and it's very exciting too. Yeah.
The next question is, now that phone books and maps on paper are obsolete, sadly, will you expand into altering other books?
Yeah, I guess if some books come to my hands and they are interesting, they can become something else. I don't know. I am open and we'll see. I still work with map, I must say. I still have some other series I want to make. I have a lot of map because when people knew I was working with maps, they began to give me maps. So it's not anymore my dad's maps. It became a kind of community of people giving me maps. Yeah. As I said, I like to sometimes objects come to me and they have meanings suddenly, and I can use them in my artwork. Interesting lapses. Yes. So
This one,
question?
yeah, this one's kind of related. So how do you feel about maps becoming obsolete and phone books?
Well, it's the world going on, and as much as I think, for example, I love the texture of the map and the physicality of it, the opening of a map. But now we have internet and we just communicate in another way. I think we lost a certain sense of the slowness of the action, because nowadays everything is really immediate. And I think that's more the question. It's about how we perceive this speeding world compared to things that were a lot slower. Just sending a letter overseas would took several weeks. Now you just send the text, and in a way it's nice, if the person is doing well or not. but you don't have anymore the anticipation of something coming and something interesting. I don't know. It's as everything, you have to embrace what is coming, but also think also at how you deal with it or you think about it. So I think that's what I would say.
So the next question is, you are inspired by nature, but as you live in New York City, would this urban environment inspire you too?
Yeah, definitely, because it's where I began to collect all the plastic bags. So it was really on a daily life, picking up the plastic. But when I think about my phone book series, when I do these collages, I think a lot of the urban setting, the grid of the city. So yes, the city is also coming a lot into my work. But it's, it's the city we live in that I think also is expressed in my work more than the city I could just see. So it's a combination. As with nature, often I also draw nature, so it's different there. The language is a little different. Yeah.
The next question is, has this moment with all the upheaval and a pandemic changed your art, or how do you see your role as an artist?
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I couldn't work actually. I mean, making art, my brain was just too busy thinking. I was reading a lot and taking time with, I was lucky enough to be with my family. So with them and cooking a lot too. So it took me time just to find this peace to be back to my work. And I could do that because I was in the mountains and I was hiking a lot. So it's when I began to do these very big drawings and really connecting with the natural environment. I do think COVID too is a sign of our way of living. So again, taking the time to slow down and breathe. A lot of time I was thinking about breathing also because all the people who were sick and couldn't breathe. So I had all this concept about breathing and touching, so the senses. So that came out a lot in my thinking process. Yeah, it's a difficult time, that's for sure.
The next question is, as you question the notion of home, would you say that home is where you create? Is it your studio, wherever that is?
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about home that way. Home is a complex concept for somebody who lived in very different places, because I am this addition of different homes, but at the end, it's mostly where I feel I connect with the people I love, and that's for me home. The studio is part of it, but it's probably not my main, place that I would call home. Yeah.
So this is, I think, a comment that you can maybe speak to. It says, your work is very poetic, a language of words moving into image. Can you speak to how language, the sound of words, inspired to develop your visual language?
Oh God, I think do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, no, because my iPod is kind of dying. Well, language also came to me because I love books, I must say. I love to read. But language has always been, in a way, difficult because I realized that when you want to express your thought in another language, it's not so easy. Although sometimes people don't understand you. Unfortunately, I have a very strong accent. When I am emotional, it's also harder. So yes, words have different meaning, and also within the languages, you can understand it differently. So it just all this question about how communicate with people that began to come mostly with all this theory of the alphabet. I was really thinking about the accent and the way for non-native speakers, how difficult it could be to just integrate in a new place and in a new country, not only from, I mean, I was not necessarily speaking from me, but extending the thought and the discussion about it. Yeah.
This next question asks, what language do you think in while making art?
So my brain is always working in two languages, French and English at the moment. Yeah, it's, I did a piece, I made a piece that is, sometimes I dream in English, sometimes I dream in French, and it's really what it is. If I am reading a book in French and then I go to the studio, I'm thinking in French. If it's an English book, I just go and I think in English. So there is no, probably no way. I study art in an English-speaking country, so often art-related conversation are in English. Yes, I don't really have a connection with the French-speaking art world too. So yeah, it's a mixed, but so I am lucky enough to be able to converse in both languages.
So that was the last question. I just want to ask if people have any other questions or comments, they can ask in the chat, or you can unmute and share some kind words with Viviane. But in the chat, we have people saying congratulations, a wonderful presentation, thank you. It was a fabulous studio visit, thank you, the work is excellent.
Yeah, thank you to everybody. Not easy, it was my first Zoom kind of studio visit. Not being able to interact with people is for me difficult, I must say. So I hope I was clear enough, but a little nervous, I must say. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, for joining and listening. So you are welcome to come to my studio if you wish, and yeah, contact me personally. So voilà. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Merci Viviane. À plus.
À plus. Hein?
Ciao. Bye.
Bye. C'est génial.
Okay.
Ah, mais comment j'enlève ça? my iPod just kind of at the end, the last minute. It's very annoying because I was hearing this